Today we're going to be talking about yet another Android flaw called Rampage. But first, my name is Steve Smith. This is TQA Weekly. Software and hardware is plagued with design flaws, and it's not if but when we find the next bug that we're going to all start worrying about. That's just a fact of life. First world problem, people. Don't worry about it. How does Rampage flaws work? How does Rampage work, basically? It works by having software writing to memory repeatedly until it basically generates an electrical field that changes information in nearby memory sectors. That's it. At the end, I'll get to the possible way of fixing this and if it's even worth it. It only affects devices that have the Android Ion subsystem, so that's Android 4.0, that was actually released October 18th, 2011, as long as the device had LPDDR2, 3, 4, and don't already have risk mitigation tactics built in because of preceding attack vectors used by Rowhammer, because this is a Rowhammer attack vector, and of course, if you did have a newish device, it would actually not be susceptible to this flaw. But let's say you had the same device as what the testers were using, which is the LG G4. What would be some of the issues related to it? Well, the data isolation would be flawed. Usernames, passwords, personal information, photos, emails, instant messages, documents, anything could be accessed, as it basically, if you had a well-crafted application, it would leverage the Rampage flaw in a way to exploit the vector, basically accessing and overtaking the root access of the device. So basically it would become the king of your device. And it would affect phones and tablets and other Android devices. Now, some of you would be panicking listening to all this, but the thing is the next thing I have to say should make you breathe easier. There is no proof of concept code. No proof of concept code means it's not out there. It means it's not really a thing. You shouldn't worry about this. And is there a hardware fix for this? Is it even worth fixing? We're talking about silicon. First of all, let's explain silicon. The die sizes shrink continuously. If we were using a 64 nanometer processor design inside of our phones, it doesn't matter how big your battery is, it would die in minutes. Don't worry about it. That's just basically life. We wouldn't be able to use the phones for very long. In fact, the previous phones had to be much simpler. Our phones, with what they actually do, having that big a processor, would not be worth it. So, obviously, our phones are related to the nanometer shrink of the dies that we are experiencing at this moment. The thing is that the smaller and smaller the die size of our memory and processors, the more likely electricity and EM fields are to be generated too close to one another inside of the processor. So at one point, there is a trade-off in which it's no longer worth it. Basically, all of the electrons will spill over all over the place and the processor simply will not work. And at this point, we'll actually shift method supposedly to optical processors. Don't quote me on that one. But when we get to that, we won't have to deal with these kinds of flaws. We'll have all new flaws to deal with that we haven't even predicted yet, but this kind of flaw won't be a thing anymore. So is it worth panicking about? No. So stop panicking about the Rampage flaw. If you have a new phone that's an Android that already has all of the Rowhammer mitigation already built in, according to Google, there is no problem whatsoever. But if you really want to check it out, go to tqaweekly.com/SE8EP46. Check in my sources. There's something called Guard Ion that would test the device and that would give the researchers more information about it. But if you're one of those that's simply like, yeah, there's no problem, there's no proof of concept, is there any danger? No. There's smoke but no fire. I wouldn't worry too much about it. If you like this episode, like it, dislike it if you didn't. Share with those you think can benefit from this, and don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to send me any questions, comments, suggestions for topics, email me at ask@tqaweekly.com. Go to my website, tqaweekly.com, for everything else. And by the way, it's brand new. rebuilt it, that's where you go. And of course, if you want to make this show better, go to patreon.com/TQA Weekly and become a patron today. Patrons get these episodes 2 days in advance of everyone else. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.